Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. We are going to be looking at ZoomProspector and taking a tour of the industry's leading online site selection data tool. My name is Alissa Sklar. I am the VP of Marketing, and I am thrilled to be here with my colleague at GIS Planning, Stevie Field-Chavez. Hello, Stevie.
Woo woo! I feel like the band is back together. Hello, Alissa.
Yeah, it does feel good to be back doing this. We did have a little bit of a hiatus in July, traditionally a kind of a slower time for webinars. So it does feel good to be back in webinar mode. And we actually have a wonderful turnout today. So we're thrilled to welcome you all here, and we appreciate you taking time out of your busy days. So I'd like to just say a couple words before I turn this over to Stevie about ZoomProspector. Many of you know that at GIS Planning, we've been doing this for 23 years. We are the original online site selection data tool. And some of the things that Stevie's going to talk to you about here in terms of the main features is the intuitive mobile responsive design. Everything about GIS Planning tools is mobile responsive, including the admin on the back end. You'll see that we've got a split screen map and property display with the properties on the left and the map on the right, similar to what you'd find with Zillow or Airbnb. You can dynamically sort data on ZoomProspector. That's a really big thing. This is something we heard from site selectors and businesses, investors, brokers, and economic developers. They want to be able to manipulate the numbers and see them adjust on the fly. So that's something that we're going to show you. We have some great map tools, including a draggable radius tool, pinpoint tool, free draw tool, so you can look at custom areas. We've got a beautiful newly released Compare Communities tab that we released this spring. Really excited to show you that. You'll see that every property in ZoomProspector automatically comes with a 360-degree virtual tour courtesy of Google Earth. You can, of course, add any additional tour media you might have as custom tours. So, 3D renderings, drone video, Matterport, interactive walkthroughs, immersive video, whatever you've got, we can accommodate it in terms of custom tours. And of course, the ability to save properties and reports in communities, and also to share. The share button's really one of our superpowers when it comes to place marketing. So I'm going to turn this over to Stevie because she is really going to be giving you the tour here, and then I'll join you back at the end to talk a little bit about how the tool can really help you turbocharge your place marketing. So over to you, Stevie.
Very good. Okay, I hate to even ask, but can you see my screen?
I can see your screen. We're looking at Michigan.
Very good. Very good. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. We love to do these, but as Alissa said, we've had a couple of months of the summer kind of off, and so it feels good to be back in the saddle again. We're gonna walk through a couple of client sites. All of our sites here are live, so if you want to visit them yourself, you certainly can. I'm going to show you some of the tips and different things that you can use, the different tools that you can use on the application. All of these are part of the same package that we sell together called ZoomProspector Enterprise. And again, as Alissa mentioned, feel free to ask questions. I'm going to go through this at a pretty decent pace. And just as a side note, I have a 7-month-old puppy sleeping in the background. So if someone comes to the porch, you will hear him, and a thunderstorm in the background as well. And so you might hear that. So it should be an interesting ride. So this is one of our favorite sites from one of our clients, Michigan Economic Development Corporation. The reason that I love this site so much is just how they've broken up the different the application and the different tools of the site. For any of our multi-regional clients online today, this is a really great way, or just something to consider, and how to break up a very easy searchable view of the different communities that you have. You'll hear me say a couple of times, I am a 2-click rule or less person on a website. And so the more you can get the tools embedded into your website and help people find exactly what it is they're looking for in that 2 clicks or less, the more I think useful a site is. So we're going to visit this Find Properties tab here, and we're also going to spend some time here looking at the different tools that come with the application. But first and foremost, let's get started on the site selection application. And actually, I've just, I thought I had it brought, there we go. I had it brought up for the sake of time, and here we were waiting. So with our applications, in any of our client territories, you'll have that client information listed here in terms of where to search for geography. So if you are a city, it would only be a city listed. If you're a county, you would have a county and all of the cities in your counties or county listed. We can define geography essentially any way that you define geography. We can search for sites or buildings, for minimum and maximum size by square feet or acres. And anytime you see one of these little tabs here, you can activate that tab and get a new feature. We have sale or lease and various types of properties. The interesting thing about the types of properties here is that we can customize all of this for you. You can have any type of property that you can think of here listed, as well as subcategories. So if you have office space, for example, we could do Class A or R&D or some type of different type of medical office space. It's completely up to you. So don't feel limited to what you see here in these features. The All Filters button will take you through some of the same tabs, geography, but we also have the ability to search by address or property name. We can search by ceiling height or various attributes for the property. So anytime we want to maybe only search for properties in a foreign trade zone, we would select that box, and only properties in a foreign trade zone would then populate the application for our search. So once again, it's kind of that very easy search option by just eliminating everything else that I'm not interested in. If I know I need a rail access, I'm going to select that, and anything that doesn't have rail access will be eliminated from my search. And then keywords, it's very similar to the filtered search here. It's just maybe a word that maybe you hadn't listed there or that they're looking for in particular. Before we start looking at a property and some of the things that come with a property, it's important that I show you a couple of key tips about the application and ways that you can view the information. So we can sort by any number of ways coming first and foremost, whether it's address, we're only looking for featured property, we're looking for properties in a specific county. I can ascend or descend our property, print in a PDF or print fashion, and also share. And you're going to hear me talk about that share button quite a bit during this demo. We also have several map layers. GIS planning provides you with a handful of different map layers. So even if you don't add any additional map layers, there are several map layers that you'll have here as an option. All of our information does go over city, county, and state lines, so you don't have to worry about information stopping if you're a border community. And on the map layer piece, we can connect to any ArcGIS server and get those Esri map layers. We've been doing that now for almost 24 years. So we're very accustomed to doing that. We can also get the map layers in the form of shape files. So if you have particular map layers that you want to add, we can always add additional map layers. And I always encourage communities to get creative with their map layers. I think it's just another way to look at data. Now you're going to see a little heart on each one of these property cards. This is if I want to save properties. Any user that is coming to your site can save a property. Winston is my puppy I was just talking about. I'm going to add Project Winston here as my folder, and I'm now going to start saving different properties into that folder so I can access them at any time. So let's save a couple, and here comes the rain, y'all. Told you it was here. I'm here in South Carolina, so if you're in South Carolina, anywhere next to me, get your umbrella, it's coming. So these are the 3 properties that I've saved. You can see they're all mapped on our map. I can select each one of them, and our map is still interactive. I can still activate different map layers if I'm interested in finding out additional pieces of information. A really great way to use this folder and this share feature. I have 3 properties I identified for my prospect. I really want to get him that 3 or her those 3 properties. I'm going to hit that share button, and this is going to allow me to email directly in the GIS application. I can also copy, and I always suggest renaming your link. I think it's super important. No one wants to see a bunch of code here, so copy, rename this link. You can embed this in an email that you personally write. You can embed this in an electronic newsletter, social media network, you name it. You can embed that. We can also embed that in different places in your website, and we're going to get back to that in here in just a little while. And here's the social media links as well. So multiple ways to share this information. You can use this share button at any time in your user experience while on one of our applications. It will take the recipient directly to this page live in the GIS application. What's so important about that? It's your analytics as a client. You get 3 sets of analytics, and so those analytics are going to activate, and you will be able to see which company has been on your website, what properties they looked at, and so you actually will be able to see that they've clicked that link and they're on your website and they're looking at the properties you've identified for that particular project. And that's a really great way. It's certainly better than downloading a PDF and sending them a PDF and not quite sure if that has reached them. So let's take a look at one of our properties, and let's start getting into the data. We're going to look here at St. Clair Bear, I guess. I'm not quite 100, I bet Alissa knows. And so we're going to take a peek at this property here. We've got, you can see a video already as part of our project. We've got our photos. You can add drone imagery, custom video, tours. Each property will come with 360 virtual tour, map view, street view, and 3D rotation. So even if you do not add a custom tour, these options are still available for any visitor on your website looking at a property. We can have your contact information listed. So here I can email Dan specifically for some information on this particular property. And you can see that we've got it already on our interactive map, and we can see different pieces of our map, like the various map tools at the bottom. So for instance, I want to measure this site to the highway here, and I can see, well, it's not even a mile. It's just about 1,600 feet. So I can change my distance. So if I know I want to be within a certain radius of a particular location or interstate or waterway, I can actually measure that information and apply that to my search. Below our property photos is a description of the property. You can copy and paste this when entering in property information if you're in economic development or a broker. This is just a bunch of information that's just telling us a little bit of information on this particular property and some of the assets for it, as well as property details, city and county information, which we'll get to in a little bit, and then various aspects of the property in terms of some of the features. You'll see none of our fields have a 0 populated field. For example, we are only going to show fields that have an answer to them. You're not going to have a lot of blank spaces. This property card would be smaller if it didn't have a lot of information, but this has a pretty good amount of information, so you're already getting some good information to your website visitor. On to some of the other pieces of data. We have our occupation data. This is provided by MZ, otherwise known as EMSI. Everybody says it a little bit different. It has our annual, hourly, and job information by both occupation and NAICS code. So it breaks out our different pieces of information, as well as the ability to remember that little notch I was telling you about. This will allow me the ability to see this in heat signature. It's just another way to look at data. It allows me to see now in colors the different pieces of data by both our more dense areas of management occupation and our lighter areas of management occupation. One thing to note is one of our newest features we just rolled out is the ability to look at these in patterns. So let's scroll in a little bit here so we can really see this information. So I can see this information. This will populate. This just rolled out, but you can see I can actually see that same map layer information, that heat signature information in various colors and patterns. This does provide us the ADA compliance that we're looking for. We understand that more and more communities are struggling with that, and so GIS planning, all of our application and tools are ADA compliant. Our occupation data, again, is provided by MZ and is updated 2 times annually. It's 0 to 60 minutes and 0 to 60 miles from any pinpoint or property of interest. Our demographic, labor force, and consumer expenditure information is brought to you by Applied Geographic Solutions. They're in Thousand Oaks, California. It is ZIP+4 data. So you are all the way down in the weeds in terms of the data that you're looking at. We have our 2021 as well as our projected 2026 data provided, 0 to 60 minutes and 0 to 60 miles, I think, as I mentioned. And one of the new features we have that, let's see if it's rolled out yet. If I'm going to look at our minute time, one of the features that you can expect to change here is the ability to select time of day, mode of transportation, and actual day that you want to see this information. For example, 12 minutes may get me further on a Sunday afternoon at 2 o'clock than it would on a Monday morning at 8 a.m. And so I can choose my date, my time, or my day of the week, my time, and my mode of transportation to determine where 12 minutes it will get me. That information is brought to you by here.com, and so we are thrilled to be able to provide that to our users. I'm originally from California, and 12 minutes isn't going to get you very far on most days, so that information is really helpful. Here we have our age distribution, gender information, ethnicity information. What I love so much about our data is the ability to look at this in multiple formats. So here we have, this is our standard report form that lists our different categories and subcategories. This is our graph form. I'm more of a graph visual person, so this is how I will retain more information. And then of course we have our heat signature, which allows us to map as we saw. And on any of our heat maps, you have the ability to exchange between patterns and colors. So just like we saw before, you have the ability of looking at this information and sharing this information with anyone who you feel like would benefit from having this data, maybe in a business business decision maker who's looking at your community. Labor force, again, in consumer expenditures, also Applied Geographic Solutions, also ZIP+4 data all the way down to the block group. So we go directly to the source of data. You are not contracting with someone who contracts it out and labels it with our label information, our logo and our information. It's actually, all of this is branded when you export this information with your logo, your contact information, and you're only seeing the type of information that you really are looking for. So if I'm only looking for 60 miles from any one site of interest, that's the information that I'm going to see on my map. Those are the details that I have and I can share accordingly. Consumer expenditures looks very much the same in the same format. It's really just going to break out where our residents are spending their money and how that is calculated. You can see that calculated below. Wage and salary is brought to you by the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and it's updated annually. The one thing I love so much about this report is the subcategories. I think it goes into a little bit more detail, and I appreciate that. It's mean and median hourly and annual wages, so it provides me a pretty good overview of our different categories and subcategories in terms of our salary criteria. Business data is my favorite report, and it just doesn't get better than this. I probably could have started with a little bit of history of myself, but I am a former client of GIS planning from about 22, 23 years ago. I was their first multi-regional client, and I've been a proud friend, client and now family member of this company for, I guess, these 23 years. So this business report is so powerful. The data source of this information is Info USA, otherwise known as Info Group, and I do believe now known as Data Axle. Y'all, it's the same company, it's just they've changed their name. I'm not 100% sure why. As Data Axle or Info Group changes their information and updates their information, your information will update automatically, so you don't need to do anything. The map is fully interactive, so I can click on any one of these industry colored dots, and it's going to show me the name of the company that is that I'm looking at and information about that company. And below is going to be a breakdown of all of the companies that I'm looking at, all of the different businesses. You can search by numbers of employees, annual revenue, NAICS code, and various clusters that we can pre-program for you. You just need to provide us with the NAICS code so we know which clusters to list here. Really neat thing about searching through this data is perhaps I'm working with an architect or an engineer, and he's interested in finding out who his competitors are within a specific radius of this site that he's looking at building a new building on. So here I have my different architects. So I'm at my 2-digit, my 4-digit, and then my 6-digit NAICS codes. It's actually going to provide me a list of all of the architects within that 7-mile radius by name of company. I can see them mapped. I have our estimated sales, estimated number of employees, so I can see where my suppliers are, where my distributors are, where my competitors are. Maybe I want to be close enough to see my competitors, but not close enough that they see me. I can see areas that might be underserved, and I can map them all. And again, that share button allows you to copy the link, rename the link, put that in an email, and send that to a prospect that you're working with, so they now can see where all of the other architects are located. None of our competitors have this information. We are the only ones that provide this information in this type of format, and it's interactive and shows you exactly mapped where the names of these businesses are. So that's super powerful information. We also provide our talent information. Our talent is going to answer the question of, are graduates coming from different learning institutions and with which degree they're graduating with. So here we have our top 5 programs by number of graduates, our top universities by number of graduates, and then below is going to be a breakdown of our graduates, our program field of study here, and with which degree our graduates are graduating with and from which learning institution. So it's going to answer that question, will I have the available workforce, brain trust coming out of the learning institutions that meet the need and criteria of my company. And remember, we talked about that city-county profile piece. You can see it here on every page. There's multiple ways to get to this information. The city-county information is going to be an aggregate of all of the information that we just saw. It's in the form of what we call an infographic. So it's visually pleasing. It has a really great look. I probably should have had one up. I'm sorry, the GoToMeeting takes a little bit of juice here. So it'll come up with our population, our demographic information, our population, how this information has changed, and we will actually just come back to that. I don't know why that's just taking a little bit of a hot second. Here we go. Oops, and I hit refresh. Y'all, I'm sorry, I'm a button clicker. It's my bad. I can't even help it. A couple of things to keep in mind is the property, is the little the bar up here at the top. Our Compare Communities button. This is one of our new tools as well. This is going to allow you to compare any community within the client territory to any community across the US. So I'm going to start with, we're just going to start with East Grand Rapids. I don't actually know much about that. And we're going to compare this to, I'm in Columbia, South Carolina. As long as it is city to city, or county to county, you can compare this information more apples to apples in together. Here, Columbia, South Carolina. Operator error is a big deal here. There we go. Now you can see we've got a major population difference. So let's look at our reports here, and I want to show you something that's a little bit interesting when comparing different communities. First of all, you can see them kind of stacked up here side by side. I see our population. I can add several different communities to compare on our demographics, and these are all of our subcategories, our labor force and our different subcategories, and our consumer expenditures. This is where, in my opinion, it gets really interesting. Look at how our demographics are, where Columbia, South Carolina is 130,000 people and East Grand Rapids is about 11,600. However, I look at our consumer expenditure information, and you can tell East Grand Rapids, they're shoppers. They're spending some money. And so if you are recruiting retail, this is telling me I don't have a very large population, but we have a lot of expendable money, and I may want to consider putting my retail establishment there. That's some pretty powerful information. I can share that just like we saw, share it on social media. You know, hey, you big retailers, take a little peek at what's going on here in East Grand Rapids. And a lot of times our competitor is not necessarily the community next door. It may not even be regional or even in our own state. If you're losing projects to one of your competitors, it's really great sometimes to compare data and find out why that could be and how best to make your data work for you so you can maybe attract the right types of companies for your community. All right, so I'm going to go back to our forward-facing page here so we can talk about a couple of the extra features and tools that come with the application. So here we had the Find Properties is our GIS application. We also saw it right here, but what we did is in what we call intelligence components, we took the same data that we have inside of the GIS application and we provide it to our clients so it lives outside of the GIS application. This prevents you from having to get a PDF document and another data source to have information. All of the information is updated from the same sources that we use inside of the GIS application. We just build it to live in other places so you have a more complete, more dynamic, more interactive website, and it takes more work off of your plate. You don't have to worry about this anymore. This drops directly in anywhere in your website you want to add it. You can change geography. Here's my drop down of communities. I can export. That's thunder, y'all. I've got my share button. I can map so I can visually see this information. So it has all of the same features, just like in the GIS tool. The mapping intelligence components is one of my favorites. This is going to map out our various map layers that we looked at when we were looking at the GIS application inside. So we see many of the same map layers that we saw from before. So it's going to map out different pieces of data. Really creative ways to use these intelligence components would be with some of our other clients. This is City of Stockton, California. They are mapping out information on their opportunity zones. So here is information on the federal program. We have information on the approved census tracts, and this is that same mapping intelligence component. And what we did here is we turned on the city limits, the boundary map, the census tract map, and the opportunity zone boundary map. So now I can visually and interactively see where those map opportunity zones are within that community. Behind these links, or behind these buttons, are links. I'm going to click this and it would take me directly into the GIS application, showing me only sites or buildings within an opportunity zone. That makes 2 clicks. So in 2 clicks, I've come to the opportunity zone page so I can visually see where the opportunity zones are. And then in 1 more click, to equal my 2, I've now gone to the GIS application looking at only properties or sites inside of that zone. That makes it super easy for your website visitors to find exactly the information that they're looking for. Conway, South Carolina used the mapping intelligence component in a very different way. Let's kind of scroll out here so I can see now more visually the outline of this community. And what they did is, like the industry clusters we saw with our business data, they provided us with the NAICS codes that make up various industry clusters for them. They labeled the industry cluster manufacturing, professional services, tourism, and retail. And now interactively, I can visually see on the map where these different businesses are and the names of the businesses that make up that cluster. So any of you who have key industries on your website that's not interactive, you're missing out, because this is a really great intelligence component to show that information. We use the business data, so it's updated as Info USA. Data Axle updates their data every day, and again, it's fully interactive. You can embed this on as many pages as you want in your website, so it really kind of answers the question of where are my industries within my community. Choctaw Nation did a really great job mapping out various industries. You can see they have several here that they provided us the NAICS codes for. And then they have some of their company names and what they do. And here are some of our industries mapped on our map. So, I mean, just hats off to these communities for taking that next step and doing something that's interactive. And again, it helps answer the question for that site selector or business decision maker. I do have South Carolina Power Team application open for a couple of reasons. First of all, they commissioned a labor study. So you can see, first of all, we've got a custom tour on many of these different sites. They did a labor study for their community, which provides information on in what industry these employees are working for and how far they're driving, and all of this will update here in a second. I'm doing the whole state as a whole. I probably should have done a community for that. I apologize. So that'll update accordingly. And we even have an explanation here of what each category is. You can see we've got our heat maps turned on, which I can always turn off. All of the information is kind of catching up as I click on it. So if you have raw data that you've commissioned, we can always incorporate that as a tab on your GIS application. And I just think that's super valuable to do. Another thing that South Carolina Power Team did that was really interesting was their map layers. They got super creative with their map layers. They have an access water and wastewater study. This is information about the study. I love the pop-up. I love that we have a contact person here to reach out to. I can click that box now that I've seen what the pop-up is, and now it's going to take me to my subcategories of that particular map layer, and I can map this on my map layer, and I can click this for an interactive map layer experience, which will tell me more information about that wastewater capacity line. So really, really great way to use those map layers. Real quick, I didn't have this up, but I was thinking about this as I was looking at South Carolina Power Team. Waco, Texas, besides Joanna and Chip Gaines, have done a really great job of presenting sponsors. So I know communities have sometimes a hard time coming up with money for tools for their website and maybe to get things done. First of all, our prices is very competitive, so you don't have to worry about that. We really try and make sure that we get it into a budget for you, because we understand the challenges that you have before you. But this is a really great way to maybe offset the cost of an application when you have really no money, is to talk about different sponsors that you might be able to do. They provide us with the logos. We've got a pop-up window. You can see we've got links to these different sponsors here at the top of the bar, and maybe you offer, there's 4 different ones, full exclusive depending upon industry, and you can rotate them out every 6 months or every year depending upon your needs. So that's just one creative way to get that information, help offset that cost. Alissa, do we have any questions?
Well, we don't have any questions just yet. So this is your cue. Okay. If you have been following along and you think to yourself that you've got questions, that things that you'd like to ask Stevie or myself, please let us know. We would love to hear them. I'm just going to grab this back from you, Stevie, to just say a couple
Sure.
things about how we use these tools for place marketing, because they're super powerful. And so the first thing, part of my job is to work with all of our clients individually once they're ready to launch. In the days before, we talk about link placement strategy, SEO, we talk about getting the most out of the tools, and then we talk about incorporating it into your place marketing mix, whatever that is. It looks different from every different client. So maybe you're doing a lot of social media, maybe you have an email newsletter, maybe you've got thinking about, zhuzhing up your proposals that are going out to folks. So this is part of what we will talk about. But a big part of it is thinking about how you can link to the different tools, but also different places within ZoomProspector for fantastic content. Because really that is the key for SEO. It's not just about seeding your website with keywords. Google's gotten too smart for that. We want to see actual content, and that's where these tools really are superpowers for you. So here's an example from Reach, Central Coast, which is over on the West Coast. And you'll see that every one of the communities within their region gets their own page, which is fantastic. We can go over to the ZoomProspector tool, which will search specifically, in this case, for Paso Robles. You can then, of course, switch to the whole region if you want to. But we also see that the intelligence components, which are included in any investment with ZoomProspector, are featured on that page. This is fantastic interactive content. It's always going to be updated automatically whenever the data gets updated, so you know that you can rely on what you're showing. And it keeps people, makes your website sticky, as we like to say. That's a real technical term right there. I love that one. Now, Stevie was showing you Michigan, and they really, what's that?
I said, I love that term. I think I'm going to use that.
Okay, yeah, tell them you got it from me. Michigan is, one of the 30 statewide economic development organizations that we work with across the US. They really knocked it out of the park with this beautiful version of our data microsite. And one of the things that I love here is that all of these different buttons are going to take you to ZoomProspector, but they all take you to a filtered search that is always going to be refreshed and up to date on the MEDC site. That's super easy to do. And this is a new way of thinking. It's not just a single link to ZoomProspector on your website, because maybe you're calling it property search or site selector or whatever you call it. There's so much more data in ZoomProspector than just that. And this is easy to do. All they did was set up a filtered search. You see they clicked on opportunity zones down here, then they search properties, and all you need to do then is grab that share button. We talked about how that's your superpower when it comes to place marketing. You can then use that share button on the main website, as you saw that they did, and it will always be a refresh search based on whatever filter you choose. In this case, it's op zones. Those were the 4 that they felt were really important. I'm going to show you another couple of examples here that I thought were really clever as you guys think about any questions you might have for us and put them in the questions field. I'm going to take you over here to New Mexico, Four Corners. They have a page on their website set up for comparing communities. Now, as Stevie said, we have that built into ZoomProspector. It also works as a standalone tool. But what they did here, I think this is really clever. So shout out to Chris and the rest of his team, is they set up a pre-populated compare communities report. They said, you know what, people are usually comparing us to the same 5 communities. We're going to set this up, and now at a glance, people can go in, they can do the, comparisons that they want. It's all here. You can scroll through, so you see the different columns compared to whichever one you see fit. You can still play around with it on the right-hand side. It's fully interactive, but I thought that was really clever because you already know the kinds of questions people, potential investors, site selectors, what are they going to ask you? So go into your ZoomProspector, do some analysis, and then use that all-powerful share button, grab the link, and set up a hyperlink somewhere on your website so that you can anticipate those questions, build in some fantastic content that addresses questions people might be typing in organically into Google, and have those questions ready for them to go. So I think that's super, super powerful. The There's so many different ways to do that, right? So if you are a region and you've got different cities or counties within your region, and you know that any one of those folks, and I'm just gonna sort this by population here so we can see what that looks like. Let's just grab one of the communities over there. I apologize, it runs a little bit slowly when I'm running GoToMeeting. I'm just gonna pick the Navajo Nation over here. So maybe the other community, chambers of commerce, business associations, whatever it is, if they want to have content that goes directly to them, they can go and do that search and grab that share link, and they'll place a link on their website that will bring people back to this so they can continue to do their research. That's good SEO right there. This tool is full of so many things that you can look at. You can serve your business community in different ways. I always tell our our clients to grab a link to the business report for the community and put a link on your website called Business Intelligence Tool. It's still ZoomProspector, but these folks might not click on something called property search if they're not just at that moment looking for a new property. However, what a fantastic way to help them map out competitors, suppliers, similar businesses, industry clusters. There's just so much great stuff that you can do in there. So this just gives you a snapshot of the kinds of things that we talk about when it comes to using these tools as a way to really turbocharge your outreach, to really drive more investment and qualified prospects back to you. That's where this really excels. This is what it is so good at doing. Okay, so we do have some questions that have come in. Remaining site link, let's see. Okay, Bob asks, can I rename, oh, I see what he says, renaming the site link. Can I rename the link in the initial link generation field, or can I only rename when I put the link in my document or email? So Bob, I may be misunderstanding this question. I'm gonna have a go at answering it, but you tell me if I'm getting this wrong. So you grab the hyperlink. If I understand correctly, we can grab it from over here under share, and then you just have that as a hyperlink. You can use any kind of text on the website page and just add the link in the background. That'll go into the metadata at the background, so people won't see a long, messy link like that. And you could call it anything else. You could do the same thing in your document. You can do the same thing in your email. Use any text or even an image if you want, and then put the hyperlink in the back. Stevie, do you think I'm understanding that correctly?
I think so. I think so. Yeah. And you answered it beautifully. It can be one word or 100, but I wouldn't make it that much, or a photo, just like Alissa said, something that's going to entice someone to click on that, or they know it's going to click on that. That link will turn a different color, so they know that this is something they need to click on, and it will take them directly to this page live in the GIS application, showing exactly what you want them to see.
Exactly. And well, like, admittedly, this is not a beautiful URL string right over here, so we don't want to put that on your website.
No, nobody ever wants to see that. It makes people nervous when they see a bunch of something they don't understand. I don't understand that. And so I want to see something that's short and sweet and tells me exactly what I'm going to be looking at.
Absolutely. Actually, it's a great question, and it's not one we've been asked before. So thank you. That's a reminder to clarify that. Thank you, Bob.
That's the cookie of the day, Bob. You get the cookie of the day by asking the question we haven't heard before.
Now, Angie asks us, are you familiar with a map layer that includes appraisal district data under local data parcels? Stevie, do you know anything about that?
I don't know if we have a client who has that, but we could add anything, any kind of map layer that you want to add, we can add. Again, we can connect to your ArcGIS server to get those Esri map layers. We can get them in the form of shape files, or I think they call them KML files. And so we can add any type. Waco did a great job with their map layers. You can actually scroll down in tight, as you press that little plus button on the website, and you can see the parcel maps and what size water line and sewer line goes up to each individual parcel. Miami-Dade County did a great job with their map layers. South Carolina Power Team did a good job. Michigan has some great map layers. Bowling Green, Kentucky has actual music venues as a map layer, and they have little treble clefs that is the little icon for the thing, and then you can scroll over and it'll tell you the music venue and how many people it accommodates. And I just love that. If you have tourism in your area, I would put, you could do bike paths or backpacking trails, or you can anything you want. I always, be creative. So yes, we can do all of that.
Yeah, Flint, Michigan added success stories. I always like that, actually. That's super
Oh, that's
clever.
great. That's really good.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's a really good one. So yeah, look, anything that you've got that helps tell the story of your region, that helps communicate your value proposition, we're happy to put those things in there. That's really important. You want to help people understand that. So
Absolutely.
I think, Stevie, I know we're up to time. We promised 45 minutes. We are at 45 minutes, but this does not have to
Very
end the
good.
conversation. If you have any questions or you want to know anything more about what we're talking about here, if you would like a one-on-one demo with Stevie or someone else from our team, depending where you are in the country, we're very happy to do that. You're going to have our contact information in the follow-up email, but you can reach out to Stevie at any point. Our client services team is fantastic and super responsive. I work with our clients individually on the marketing side to help you generate ideas, plan, brainstorm, and implement. We would be thrilled to chat with you. So I think this takes us to the end here today. Stevie, always a pleasure to present with you.
Oh, this was fun. I loved doing this, and it's always fun to just kind of show a little bit about what we do, maybe get the wheels turning for our economic development friends out there. And unfortunately, as the world continues to change in front of us, our websites have to be ready. Many of us are not in the offices either still or going back to at home working, and there's no one there to answer phones. And so we have got to have your website answer the questions for those looking for information in your community. So call us and we'll be happy to answer any of your questions. Alissa, thank you.
Excellent. Thank you all for taking time out of your busy days and for the work you are doing for your communities. We look forward to connecting with you. Have a great day.
Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.